Yeah, that works.
So is it,
Yeah, the first time I didn't I do it, yeah. I never paid attention to that.
So it's totally frozen.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, that one. That's,
So there's a couple of things that I would do. One is I would just try to get it through minutes. If that fails, if you do Control Delete, it'll give you the task manager. And you can kill the virtual machine. It's a little bit dangerous in terms of what might happen coming back.
Do you have it running off your portable hard drive?
No.
And it's just.
That was just when you first loaded it like that, huh? It just loaded up.
I'm just curious. Touch your mouse inside. Well, mouse is working.
that's it, right?
You're there now.
Community assessment.
yeah, for the examples of the community. I don't know if I should go, if you want to wait to see if there's. All right. I was,
Community underscore assessment.
yeah. Be in there, right? Did you load both? All right, so I'll start talking about joins. And as I said, total open lab on Wednesday. I'm going to cross join first. Does anybody know a good definition for a cross join? This is one that you probably rarely use. Maybe.
Is it sort of like an outer join?
Oops. Actually, not outer. It's called a Cartesian dump. Is another word for it.
Like Cartesian coordinates.
Kind of. What happens with a cross join is that every record in the first table is matched to every single record in the join table. So what happens is, like, if you had 30 rows in the second table, the first row in the first matched with 30, and then the second is matched with those 30 records, and then the third is matched with each of those 30 records. So it gives you a complete, every possible combination of things between two tables. Generally, you don't want to do this, and it can even crash a machine. If your rows, think about what that, I said 30. Imagine if you had 500,000 rows in each table. Each of the 500,000 here would be, each row would have 500,000 matches in the second one. And your RAM would die.
You probably doesn't have enough RAM.
Quick. Yeah. So I'll show you the Cartesian join, then I'll talk. I actually did a quick lookup because I've always been curious about this. Why would you ever do a Cartesian join on purpose? So and it's not illegal. They actually have a keyword for it. So there must be times when it's useful. So I'm going to, the whole point of joins, before I do the Cartesian cross join, what is the point of joins?
Queries across tables.
Right. When you create, and you can actually do queries across databases, and we will, but not now. When you create a database, you spend your time splitting things up, right? So when you want to look at the data, though, you want to bring them together. And joins are probably ways of doing that. There's one other thing I want to show you real quickly, which can be of use. And again, it'll maybe help you get back in. So in Community Assist, is there a diagram there? No.
Database diagrams.
Yeah, I was going to show you a diagram. Now, I've had this product in this virtual machine. There's no owner. This doesn't have a proper owner. So I'm going to show you how to set it up because I want you to be able to see the diagrams. So I am going to go to Properties. I'm right-clicking on the database, and I'm going to Properties. And I'm going to go to Files, I believe. No. General. Options. Do I want to go Permissions? I'm looking for the owner. General Files. Well, actually, I think
Under right there.
database owner, right? Database name and then owner. Right here is what I want.
That's on
On Files. And I'm going to change it to SA, which is System Administrator. And then, is it under General? You know, Files, Options. I'm going to set the compatibility level back to like 2008. Yeah, so I changed under Files, I changed this to SA, and under Options, the compatibility, I went back to 2000.
It sounds like a workaround or something.
It is a workaround, and it's something you should never do in production. Because I've just activated the SA account, but you really don't want to do. The SA is System Administrator.
That's the level of access we generally don't need. And
Well, we kind of have it, although I should probably say while we're here, we're doing this just for convenience and ease. We're running as administrator, and that's something you shouldn't do.
So mine, I got an error before I did that, and I got it again. It says this database does not have one or more. Of the
That actually isn't an error. So I'm going to do a new database diagram. This isn't an error because notice it says, do you wish to create them?
I got that before I made the change.
Did you? Well, actually, it's because you're not in the virtual machine.
Oh, so does it matter?
You don't have to make those changes, probably.
But I already did. It's not going to affect.
It shouldn't matter.
Changing the owner to SA?
Yeah. For some reason, it doesn't like the owner. Notice also when we log in, you know, I have to do // and normally the name of the machine should be sufficient. But there's something about the ownership that doesn't work there. And I don't know what David did when he installed this. So I'm going to just select all the tables and add. And the reason I'm doing this is that when you're doing joins, and then I'm going to close, and then I'll just move over here and I'll move up. So when you are doing joins, you need to understand the path, the relationships between things, and this can help. So like if you want to know a person's name that has a particular phone, you have to go through, or what the context. So if it was a home phone, this tells you that it's a home phone. You can come up and the person key here links to the person key here. So you go through those three. Same with an address. You want to know which person is here. You need to know that it's person and person address. We're going to do that join pretty soon.
How did you get the diagram again?
So I just selected all the tables. Here, I'll kill the diagram and do it again. So new database diagram. The first time it says that you don't have the stuff, so you have to say yes. Then you have to go back and say new diagram again, probably.
Select all.
And yeah, I'm just going to select all the tables and then do add and then close. And the advantage of this is it kind of will show you, again, the relationships between them. You can move these things around to make them a little more readable for you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but one of the problems that you will have with joins and going forward, because after today, pretty much all assignments will have joins, is knowing what joins to what, because you didn't make these databases, right? So these diagrams can be useful. So I'm going to save this.
Are joins what make a relational database relational?
Well, so technically what makes a relational database relational is the person key related to the person key. So the relationship is established by repeating a key field as a foreign key.
And the line represents the join?
It represents not the join, but the relationship. So this is the one side, this is the mini. That's supposed to be an infinity sign. It looks like a chain link to me. Is yours working now?
Well, it froze again.
If worse comes to worse, we'll set you up on another machine, maybe the next one over or something. But see if it'll unfreeze.
I got a login failed when I tried to create a new diagram, because the server is in single mode. Yeah, never mind.
So the diagram isn't necessary for the work, but it can make your work easier. Your server should not be in single mode. That's weird.
Well, it is a Monday.
It is a Monday, yes. Anyway, so what makes it, there's another thing that makes it relational is that there's an enforcement thing that happens here. What this means is you can never enter a person key here that doesn't first exist in the person table. So it prevents you from having like contacts that are not related to any person. Same with the address. You can't enter a person key here that doesn't exist here, so there can't be any addresses that aren't attached to a person. Things like that. Does that make sense? So that's one reason why when we're making tables, these were called constraints, because they add limits. On the primary key side, it's a limit that it has to, it has to be unique. It can't be repeated. On the foreign key side, it has to match something in the parent table. So, did I save that? I was going to. I think I did because it's paled out. It says diagram 1. So, and you can always recover, the diagrams will be here if there is one. I think in Metro Alt, there is a diagram. But, again, we do have the same stupid owner problem.
You have to do that for each database?
Except the ones you make in this environment. Does that make sense? Because we imported both of these. If we were to make our own database, you wouldn't have to do this. So I'm going to make it SA. You might not need to. Did you have that same error?
No, I'm going to, can I execute the database because the database principal because the principal DBO does not exist?
All right, so maybe change it to SA, or you could change it to your account. There's 3 little dots there. And you could go and find your name instead of DBO. Just find your machine name, your username in Windows. That would probably work for you, and it just won't work here.
I didn't get the single user mode error when it came to Metro Alt for some reason.
Yeah, well, single user. restrict access multi-user. If
Oh,
you come, this is under options. If you come to community assist, you should be able to change that to multi-user again.
It was files and then options and then knock it down to 28.
Yeah, one of my students figured this out, and I have no idea how they did. So the essay I could figure out, but why you set up the compatibility backwards, I don't know.
Owner. I should be able to change this.
Are you still frozen? So I'm going to see if I can do this database diagram. Still not moving at all?
Yeah, what did you do last time?
Control Alt Delete. But it restarting it again, I don't know if it will. So the restart.
What?
Yeah, the restart would be over here on that screen.
I'm fine.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, I can do something.
But let me, I will have to catch up. As I said, if this continues, we're just gonna be over. Was there anybody sitting there?
There is.
There is. You need an upfront one. So how about the one next to you? Okay. Let's not do it right now, but if it doesn't unfreeze here, let's set you up on another machine. So it's like that.
I'm sorry, was changing the compatibility level?
To 2008. You shouldn't have to do it on your machine.
It won't let me access.
Shouldn't have to.
Well, I don't know. For Metro, you might have to go in, but you should be able to do it on your own username.
Yes, it told me on my username.
Yeah. You shouldn't have to do SA. You should be
Did
able to.
you have to change compatibility?
No, just use the one.
I think with you have legitimate account, which for some reason on the virtual machine isn't there. Yeah. So there's a couple of relationships missing in this diagram, which I hope are in the database. Like the bus stop and bus stop schedule, those should have relationships, and I'm pretty sure they're in the database, just not in the diagram at this moment. I may have made the diagram at a point before I had them. But again, the diagram is there just to help you figure out the relationships. I might redo the diagram. Well, actually, let's redo the diagram. It's fairly easy. Let's make a second diagram. So I'm just going to I think this one, yeah, everything's related, except bus fare. And that I did. That is there like that. And
yeah, fare and bus service for me do not have any.
they should have. I just remade it. I didn't do the one that was pre-built.
Yeah, the only one I have sitting up by itself is fair.
Yeah. And there is a script I might give you at some point to reattach that to the others, but it takes a little bit of work. I'll see if I can find that script. So we won't be using fare much, if at all, ever. I don't know why. When I was making that, I think I added it as an afterthought, and I forgot to do the attach.
That was on Metro Alt, right?
That was Metro
Don't need
Alt.
to do that on.
Yeah, this is just, again, just so you can have something to help guide navigation. All right, so I'm going to go back to the queries. To some extent, this was all meant to help, particularly Marie get caught up, but that doesn't seem to be helping. All right, those things are useful though. So let's do a cross string. And as I said, I will try to do this fairly. There are really only three kinds of joints we're going to look at, which are cross joints, which in real life I would say you would use almost never. Inner joints, which you're going to look at a lot, use a lot, and outer joints, which you'll use occasionally. So working at all, even for touch.
How did you end it?
So to end it,
Control Alt Delete, and then over in the corner here. The one, yeah.
and if it doesn't work this time, as I said, we'll set you up on another machine. I don't know where, does anyone sit next to you on a normal day?
I think so.
Okay.
I can't remember who though.
I was trying to keep you up front without.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a cross join. I'm going to show you two ways to do it. So I'm going to do select star from person, and what do we want to cross join with? Let's cross join person. All right, let's do contact. So this is one way to do it. So notice that Jay Anderson here is matched with every single phone number, and then when that's done, after Jay Anderson is matched with every single phone number, it'll go to the next person, and then it'll match Toby Zimmerman with every single phone number. And it has 2,114 rows. Yeah, so I'm getting everything. It's actually over here, the contact number.
Oh.
This is in all of this stuff, which I shouldn't have probably done, is in the person table, all the way up to here. And then this is all the contact table. So maybe let's just show it a little clearer. Let's just do person last name. Maybe person key. And I think I need to do person.person key because it's in both tables. It needs to know which table it's from. So there's, oops, I want the contact number too. Okay. So Anderson is tied to every single contact number, right? And then Zimmerman is tied to every single contact number, and then Mann is tied. So there's still 21,414 rows. And these are relatively small tables, right? Because again, it's showing you every possible match. So I was trying to figure out why you would do this, and they talked about sometimes you want to create like a matrix of like, they said in clothing, maybe a list of all sizes and specs. So the specs are in one table and then other. They also talked to if you were doing a time row and you wanted a row for every minute of every day. Basically, if you need to create kind of a matrix, yeah, like a cube. So I think that it's fairly, if you're doing some kind of cube or matrix type thing, it can be useful, but it's not something you're going to use on a daily basis. And really, when we're doing, I don't think there will be a single place going forward where I'll ask you for a cross check. So don't. I just want to show you that they exist. There's an older version of this, and I'm going to show you a couple of older versions of joins, where instead of we just do contact. This has exactly the same effect as the one above it. Still has 21,414 rows. So this just has in the from clause, you just have commas and list the tables. The one above is preferred because it's explicit about what we do. And I showed you the old syntax because, particularly in some of the older databases, like Oracle didn't support the cross join or the inner join, which we're going to do in a moment, syntax, until, well, about 5 years ago, which is forever ago. But some of the older versions of Oracle don't support it.
They didn't support inner joins?
No, they supported inner joins. They didn't support the syntax that said inner join.
Oh, I see. I was like, how could you not?
So is it still frozen?
So I got way to go down, didn't like, so I told me with my disk, and it just smells.
Don't understand what's going on there. What if your disk wasn't plugged in at this point?
Having hardware problems with the
Yeah,
disk,
was
that
it a
would
hard
cause it.
drive failure?
It runs now?
Well, it's still. It's okay, you can.
The extent of my IT abilities is, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on?
Which we've done twice now.
Just IT crash.
Yeah.
Well, with Windows, reboot is the solution.
That's
Not
what
so
the
much with
standard,
Linux.
I think that's with any computer.
Yeah, I mean, 'cause the main thing is it gives you a chance to reload everything, reload all the drivers, reload everything. And Windows does do some self-repair algorithms in the background.
It may stumble a lot, but at least it's good at picking itself back up.
To some extent. I have taken Windows to where it was just, let's just format the disk and forget it. You know, but, so let's do inner joins now. So, as I said, cross joins are just that matrix that totally, everything connected to everything. And except for some rather specific uses, it's not. Yeah, touch doesn't, no, touch worked there. If touch worked, maybe the mouse will work.
So the one that you said is the old method
Yeah,
still works,
it still works.
but it's still standard in like Oracle and stuff like
No, I think even Oracle is moving this because it's more explicit. See, the thing is sometimes people get cross-joins without wanting them. With the new syntax, you cannot accidentally create a cross-join. But with the older syntax, when I show you an inner join, I'll show you. So I'll do the old syntax first. Let's just do select, well, person last, let's do person first name. Person last name. Let's do person email. And then from address, let's do person address. I'm going to skip the apartment. Street. Person address. City. And let's just do the zip. We'll not worry about the state. I think it's just zip code. Is it zip or is it zip code?
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to do from person. And the correct, now the old syntax would be from person, person address. So this is the old syntax. And then you would say where person dot person key equals person address dot person key. So we're telling it how it relates. And we're telling it in a where clause. All right. So if I run that, this is a correct join and it will work. Right? We got 134 rows. Louis Mann has two entries there because he has two addresses. All right, if I accidentally forgot the where clause, I would have a cross join with 17,286 rows. There's no error that comes up if you accidentally leave out the relationship with the old syntax. And it's not likely to happen when you've only got 2 tables here, but if you're doing 4 or 5 tables, if you accidentally leave out one of the relationships, you'll get that cross join and you'll suddenly get a much larger data set than you were thinking. So this is the old syntax, and you might actually prefer it in some ways because it is a little bit more typing efficient. There's fewer things there. But the newer syntax, which I'm going to show you in a moment, is safer. And it's more explicit about what's going on. So, and you've probably seen this. Have you guys seen these joins before? So, I started to type what I was thinking instead of what I was needed to do. So I'm going to do actually the same fields. So let's just copy that. And again, I will post these with comment. So actually, I'll do real quickly new syntax. So instead of, I'm going to do from person. And then I'm going to do inner join person address. Okay, and then we'll do it on person.person key equals person address.person key. Did you figure out what was going on?
No, but I restarted the SQL Server sheet. I don't see her as a user in this domain for some reason.
Oh,
Did it shut down?
What?
Did your virtual machine shut down?
Can you scroll down just a little bit?
yeah.
It's still running?
Well, I'm just opening VMware now.
With on person key, person address.
Right.
Right?
All right. So this is the from person, just like before. Inner join, although you can actually skip the word inner. It's optional. You could just do join. It assumes inner join if you don't have any other words there. I always write it though. And then on tells, instead of the where clause telling how the tables relate, there's an on clause that tells how the tables relate. Even though you've made the relationships in the database, in the join statement, you have to tell it how the 2 tables relate. Primary key, foreign key. It actually doesn't matter if you did foreign key, primary key, the order doesn't matter.
Yes, interesting.
So when you do inner join, you have to say what table.
When I go back.
Okay, I missed it.
Yeah, you just missed the person address.
It's on pause now.
You doing okay?
Okay, when you start.
Oh, you're looking at another. All right, so this will have exactly the same effect as the other one, but it has the advantage of being more explicit about what's going on. And with join syntax, it won't let you accidentally do a cross join, right? Because it'll give you an error if you leave something out. Still having problems?
Whereas the old one won't give you.
It won't give you an error. It'll just happily do the cross join. So you could get a bunch of data that you weren't intending, and that doesn't mean anything. I'll show you one other thing here. You can alias the tables if you want, and then we'll do like a bigger. So if I could, if I want, I could do P. And then this gives me an error here because then it wants a P there. And I'll do a PA here. and then it throws up, but I can do a PA here. Oops, not PPA. Typically, I would do these as lowercase, though I don't think that matters. So the only advantage of doing this is it saves you some typing, right? This is just aliasing the tables. So person address, PA, P. So I can say P.person key, PA.person key, rather than person.person key and P person address.person key. If this confuses you, the aliasing, don't do it. Just use the table names. I'll do one other thing up here just to show you something. If I put person key up here, so we'll include a person key there. First, it's spelled wrong, but it again, person key can be in more than one of it. It's in more than one of the tables. So it needs to know which table it's in. So I'm going to do P.person key. You have to alias it. If you're a programmer, there's something a little bit weird about aliasing it there. Anybody have an idea what it might be? We're using the alias before we declare it. But one of the things, as I think I mentioned before, these are not processed in sequence. The SQL sequence, they're not processed in that sequence. It goes and looks at the tables first, the criteria, and does the column lists last in the actual order of processing. So even though we haven't declared the alias until here, you have to use it up here. There are times when it's useful to know that it doesn't process things in the order that you write them. Unlike, say, a C# or Python, which always will process things in the order you write them.
Mine, I didn't do that. I didn't put the P.person key. I didn't get an error.
It might when you run. Let's see. Yeah, person key up above them. Yeah, that's where. That's the only time it would make a difference is in the select class.
But I don't have that in select class, and it still runs.
Yeah, it would run just fine.
Okay.
But if you do add person key, you have to qualify.
Oh, with the P.
Yeah. The only difference between this one and the one above is that it has aliases and it has the person key. So I will comment this. So let's do a multi-table join, more than two. So let's look at, first of all, I'm going to just do a quick look at the select. I think from request, I guess it's grant request. And so we have a couple of foreign keys in here. We have the person key and we have the grant type key. So what I'll do is a table join where we bring those in so they're words instead of numbers. Now you're updating.
Yeah.
It is Monday. You're being very patient. I might have thrown the computer by now. Okay. So let's do a quick, so I'm going to do select. Let's do the grant request date. Person last name. Do we want their first name too, or just their person last name? I guess let's add their email just for. Okay, and I'm going to break the line, and I want to do grant type name. and grant request explanation. And we'll do the grant request amount. So one of the things when you're doing joins is that you basically, in the select clause, you list all the columns you want. Doesn't matter what table they're in, right? If you just list all the columns you want to see, no matter what the table is. And you list them in the order you want to see them. And again, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do all one table and then the next table. So you just want to look and see, you know. And then down below, you choose one of the tables. So I'm going to do from, to be the from one. And I'll do it from, do I want to do grant request first? We can. Let's do from grant request. And I can alias it if you want, but let's not initially. So notice all the ones that relate to grant request went. And then you can go, again, you have to follow the path. So I'm going to do inner join grant request type. And I will say, I have to say how those two things relate. So I'm going to say on grant request so grant request dot grant request grant type key. Is it grant type, the table name? I think it's grant type. Equals grant type dot grant type key. All right, and then I need to do another inner join on, well, it's a surprise person went away. Person on person dot person key equals grant request dot person key. Person key, okay. Did I spelled that wrong? That's why it's still underlined. Okay. And we could, if we want, we could do where, but let's do this first by itself. Notice we've got their last name, we've got their email, we've got the grant type. You know, it's starting to get a little more readable. So Carmel did that. They want food. We have 2 children that are running low and are running low on money, and etc. I will say some of these don't match exactly. These look like they're okay. I think it's the grant request review that got off by a number or two, because again of the way I populated it. Does that make sense as a join? Questions? Again, the inner is optional. You could just say join. The on tells how they relate. So person key is related to person key. And then this one, the grant type key is related to the grant type key. So where we're getting the grant type name is substituting it for the key, you know, for the joins, making the relationship. Inner joins only return matching records. So it only shows you the things that have a match between the 2 tables. If there are any records that don't have a match, it doesn't show them. So for instance, it doesn't show you the names of the people who made donations, right? Because they are not matched to the request table. It only shows you the names of the people that may ask for made requests. Any comments, questions? So quiet.
Yes. I think I get it.
Okay. These are the ones that, the inner joins are the ones you're gonna do 99% of the time. Right, because typically what you wanna do is just rejoin the information, the matching information. And you can do, there are things that might have 5 or 10 tables, right? And you just keep adding an inner join on, inner join on, inner join on, and just keep doing that. This is the newer syntax, and it has the, as I said, the advantage that it will give you an error if you forget something. So you won't get any accidental cross joins in there. Okay. And you can alias them. I didn't here just for clarity, but you could, from grant request GR, grant type GT, person P. You can alias them whatever you want. You don't have to use just a single letter abbreviation or 2-letter abbreviation, but I usually do because the only point of aliasing it is to prevent typing more. So I keep it pretty brief.
So the inner join syntax is synonymous with a left inner join.
No. Well, there's no such thing as a left inner join.
You're right, there's outer join.
Outer joins. Outer joins are different. We're going to do those next. You might actually get to do an outer join. Okay, I'll give you a second if you see if it works, and then. So I'm going to just up here where it says inner joins. Okay. It looks like you're running. Trying to get I think you're already running. But to get to the actual SQL, go down, scroll down. All right. So the next thing we'll do you need a second?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead.
Okay. There are outer joins, and this is actually the last part of this. It's taken a long time just because of other things, but that's okay. I don't think, did I leave? I don't think I talked about any other kinds of joins than these three in the thing. Outer joins are different than inner joins. Anybody know how?
I've had to do one.
So outer joins, basically an inner join brings back matching. Outer joins are really good for showing mismatches. So typically in an outer join, one side, one table, okay, so let's see how I want to say it. It returns all the records from one table. Whether it has a match or not. And then only matching records from the other table. So what this is really good for is finding things like a customer that has no orders. Let me show an example and maybe it'll make some sense. So So I am going to do select grant type name. And then I'm also going to do, so I'm going to do grant request dot grant type key, right? Because they relate. This it would be that. Okay, so I'm going to do from grant type, and I'm going to say left outer join. Is that correct, or is it outer left join? Let's see how this works. Will be from grant request on. It's not complete yet. So on grant type dot grant type key is equal to grant request. Grant request date, grant request dot grant type key. Did I spell request wrong? No, that was, oh, double equal sign. All right, so a left outer join. It's going to return all of the grant types names from grant type, whether they have a match in the grant request or not. And then I'm just going to return the grant type key. And I'm going to show you, we'll modify this a little bit, but I want to show you what the results look like. So notice, why is food null?
No food for you.
Food is not the one that should be null. That's weird. See, the thing is that nobody's ever asked, I have 2 for funerary? Oh, that's the key. Generally, so select left would be from grant type. I'm pretty sure there's no funerary requests in there. It could. I know there's food. Let's do grant type key. And we want to return it from grant type. So grant type key is 1. Why would it come up null over there? Null is what I want. Typically when something, nobody has ever requested it, it comes up null. But that isn't right. Anybody, let's do it real quick.
So we're not supposed to get rolled.
Oh, I know why. I know why. Anybody see why? I'm not matching like to like. That's something you have to be careful of. You always have to match the same thing to the same thing. Grant type key to grant type key. I was doing grant request. I was matching 2 different keys, which it will do happily, but it's meaningless. There, so food is fine. And let's do distinct. Just to make it less. All right, so this is what the answer that I expected. All right, so it returns all the things from grant type and only the matching records from the grant request. So this grant type key is coming from grant request. There are no requests for funerary or holiday loans or grants. So they come up as null in the answer set. So if you wanted to see only those things that have never been requested, nobody ever asked for them, then you could say where grant request dot grant type key is null. And then what you would see is only those things that have never been requested. Now, one of the confusing things here is that there are no nulls in the database itself, right? These are nulls in the answer set, the results set. If you went into the grant request database, there's no nulls related to this. It's just, these are null because there's nothing in the results set that matches them. That means that nobody has ever asked for those. Again, this is a really good, useful thing if you want to like look for a customer that never made an order, or you want to look for a product that nobody ever ordered, right? Or if you're a library, I know they do this, which always makes me sad, the books that nobody ever checked out, when they get rid of them. Usually I'm the next person that would want them.
If a customer's not ordering a certain product,
Yeah,
even though they're in that industry.
it
Who are they
could
buying
be.
it from?
Yeah, so you could do, I mean, this kind of thing can help.
Yeah.
It's different than inner join, because an inner join would just exclude these because there's no match, right? So it's returning all of one side and only the matching records from the other. Did yours work? I can help you in a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So the idea of left, that just means that this table is the left one. The first table you mentioned is the left one, and the next one is the right. So you could, there is a right outer join as well. So if I wanted to make this work, what I'd have to do is from grant request, right outer join. So I'll do the same thing just as a right outer join. It'll give you exactly the same result, but we have to reverse the order of the tables. So I'm going to just say, change this to grant request, and this one to grant type. And then if I change it to a right, if I don't change it, then what it would do is it would give me everything. We'd actually just end up with the same thing as inner join. So that's exactly the same. It's just which table is first, which is second. Not being Hebrew, I usually do left outer join. I'm not sure why you do right outer join, except for if you're used to writing, Hebrew reads right to left.
Okay.
There isn't a version for Chinese which reads kind of like that. I mean, there's not, the only difference is what order you put the tables in. But what you'd have to know is the hard part logically is knowing which table is likely to have the extra fields that are not being matched. So typically, like again, if you had a customer versus a sale, you'd want to return all of the customers, and the matching table would be sales, so that any customer that didn't have a sale would have a null. If there was a product, you'd want the products to be up here to your left table, so it returns all the products, and then you can do the sales and see which products have never been sold, which types of products probably, as opposed to. So whatever one, probably left outer join, whichever one you want to see the everything from, and whichever one you want to see the matching base from. Outer joins, again, are rarer than inner joins. 90% of the time, you're going to be doing inner joins. because that's most of what you want to see. But every once in a while, you want to see not what matches, but what doesn't match. And that's what an outer join is for. There is such a thing as a full outer join, but it actually doesn't make any difference. So if I do, let's just do, what a full outer join does is it just brings back all the records from both tables. I'm just going to do this one. And I'm going to do full outer join. And it still has those two as null, right? It actually, so I've never understood the point of it. And if I do the where, it actually will have exactly the same result as the other two. So I'm not sure what a full outer join gets you.
So basically it doesn't do, it's legitimate syntax, it just doesn't really do anything.
So the only thing I could think is if there's a cross thing where there might be some in this table that don't match the other one and some in this table that don't match the other. To do that, you had to have really shitty database design, but it is possible because there are a lot of really crappy database designs out there.
I don't doubt it.
Where you have customers that don't have orders, and you have things that never were ordered by a customer, that might actually make it something like that. But anyway, I think that's all I have on joins. It took me a little longer than I meant to. Questions on them? These are little, they can take a little to get the hang of, but they're really the lifeblood of 90% of queries, because you almost always want to bring things together from multiple tables. Later, I will show you some things about bringing in things from other databases, which we won't do right now. Notice this dot here. This is called fully qualified or qualified notation. So we're saying what table this belongs to, right? We're saying that this grant type key belongs to grant type.
You could use that notation,
Yeah, you can use it anytime.
and so you could do that for every single.
You could if you want. I usually don't because it's extra typing.
Yeah.
Now you can all fully qualify. You can say server name dot database name dot schema name dot table name dot column name. So you can cross query between servers even if there's some relation between the tables. And there are times like it's often the human resources database may be entirely different from your point of sale or something like that. And you don't want to reproduce all that information, so you might cross to the other database to get information that you need for your other database. But yeah, you can fully qualify. You can query within cross databases. And you can also even do it across servers. So, questions on that? I will post. Wednesday is a totally open lab. I'll be here to help if you need. If you want to work at home, you don't have to show, but I will be here to help. So,
What days is Plug open then?
the next class, Wednesday. So I will also announce in Canvas. I hate to have people come if they're already caught up, but it's a day if you're not caught up or if you had computer problems this whole class, it can be fairly useful. And we'll do a few of those, as I said, particularly if I see that there's a trend of people falling a little bit behind the assignments. We'll make some days. I think we got plenty of days. Although I am going to miss a couple of days in June. So joins are fun, I think. I might comment just a little. I'm pretty sure you can leave the outer out. I'm gonna do one more of these. I'm pretty sure outer is optional. Just,
Outer's the default.
yeah, well, if you have the word right, it's, or left, it's going to assume it's an outer joint. Kind of like if you do nothing, if you leave that out, it'll be happy too, because it assumes, if you don't have right or left, it assumes it's an inner joint. So you don't have to write inner, and you don't have to write outer. You do have to write right or left for the outer joints. Cross join, you do have to do cross. Way up at the top, you do have to do cross join, because that's not going to be assumed. I will post it. Did you want to see something else real quick?
I saw it.
Okay. So I'm going to stop. There is a video, probably full of dead spots because I was helping over there some and different things, but it is there. And yours is working okay now?
Yeah, no, it's.
Okay.